Hi, how's it going, everybody? Tim Jedrek with Rudder Marketing. We're actually doing this live today, and we have on the podcast special guest. It's Carl Valeri, and if you've been following our channel or following his channel, you might have seen us doing a similar podcast, and it was really me on his show. So this was this is kind of the reverse of that, and actually he's going to be on our show today. And the past one that we did a couple of weeks ago was really just myself talking about Rudder marketing, how we help flight schools, and our impact on the aviation industry. But because I think I talked too much. I didn't really get the chance to really talk about. We didn't really get the chance to talk about what Carl does. So obviously he's in charge of the Aviation Careers Podcast, and there's a lot more background and things that he's done. So I don't want to give it all away. So I'll kind of give him the floor to kind of introduce himself and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do these days.
Well, thanks, Tim. First of all, it's a real honor to be on your show and on your podcast here, and I appreciate everybody that's coming here to listen and to watch. But the way I got started in this industry, and first of all, we do a podcast called Aviation Careers Podcast. It's just one of the many things we do. But I'm an airline pilot, a captain for a major airline. I'm also an instructor on the Airbus A321. But it all happened before that many, many years ago, and I got in the industry as an airline pilot at a regional, and I got hired in 2001. And during that period, there was a furlough. And they asked me at the Airline Pilots Association to be the furlough rep for that airline. And that turned out to be a lot of fun, volunteering to help people find jobs throughout the world. It was for Continental Express, but I wound up working for the actual mainline carriers also. Well, that was in 2001. In 2003, I said, well, I'm doing all this for free as a volunteer. Maybe there's a business here because maybe there's a need. And that's how I got started. I said, hey, let me just start this business where I'm helping people understand how to go from point A to point B in their careers, and then maybe help them out with the interviews and things like that, because I had done that in another industry. I was in the computer industry for years, and I also owned a couple other businesses. So that's how it spurred. I owned the computer business, and then I owned a food company for a while, an international food trading company, and that was kind of my background. And I said, hey, let me see if I can put the two together. And it's really been a blessing. It's been a lot of fun over the years, that's for sure.
That is quite a background. I did not know that about you. So wait, you were in the food manufacturing industry and also had a different business. You said IT business?
Yeah, so that's how I got my start. And to back up, and when I went to college for computers, and in my senior year, I used to do model airplanes, and someone said, hey, you can fly those. I was like, me? I can't fly an airplane. There's no way. So I went to the airport and took a lesson. And I was like, oh my gosh, the instructor, by the way, instructors are incredibly important, especially that first experience, because he looks at me while we're flying and he sees my big smile. And he says, I get paid for doing this. And I was like, that is awesome. I want to do that. And it was cool because that was May 1st, 1989. And then by May 31st, I had soloed. I went full hog into it. But the thing is, Mom and Dad paid for my college. And they said, well, if we want you to do the computer thing, and at least give that a shot. I was like, okay, that's fair. So I went into computers, and me being me, I wound up starting a computer consulting business, and during that period was able to fund my flight training. So that's how I funded my flight training. And then decided that, this is something I want to do. But along the way, I wound up, in going to the food business, I wound up meeting somebody in the Bahamas, of all places, and marrying her, a Bahamian, and her family was in the lobster business. And so I had a lot of experience in computers. I was doing this for 10 years and got all my ratings over 10 years. And I was like, gosh, I know how to bring computers in and out of the country. Why don't I do it for food? That wound up being an amazing step. You never know what's going to happen in life, by the way, because all of a sudden that turned into, multi-country and businesses all over the place. I wound up I owned ice cream machines, 35 different shops throughout Florida, New Jersey, and the Bahamas, and then wound up getting into hot sauces, got into guava jellies, guava jams. We did specialty foods, but primarily lobster. Her family owned a lobster plant, and I said, listen, I'll buy all your production. And it went from there, and that was that was a blessing. It really was, and I really enjoyed that. But unfortunately, got divorced and then went back into aviation full time, and that's how I wound up here. And that was back in '99. I went back into aviation full time, and I was a little bit older. I was 45, by the way, by the time I got to the majors. So when people ask me, do I know anything about starting later in life, I say, oh yeah, I was 33 when I actually started this whole journey as far as flying for a career. 23 when I started. But all those different things that I did actually helped people, especially with their businesses. And I love teaching, and I got into flight instructing, and I wound up loving it so much. I wound up working as assistant chief at many different 141 schools wherever I went, and I still teach now. As you know, I'm at the airlines teaching, and it's just been a blast because that's basically what I'm doing with the career coaching. And I got into coaching, helping people move forward in their careers, and that really is what you need to do. You need to impart knowledge and help people.
Wow. Yes, I'm really curious about this business aspect of it because for me, I work with a lot of flight schools that kind of start up or they've been in business for a bit but they've stagnated, and it seems to me that you've had a very successful career, not just doing flight schools or whatever, but you also have a really successful career doing businesses in IT and food. And what I wonder is there a lot of, I guess, lessons learned from those type of industries that can be applied to someone starting a flight school? Because I think a lot of people want to get into the flight school industry, but
absolutely. I tell you, and I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the most important things I learned, even in aviation, because I help a lot of people getting started becoming flight instructors, and is number one, listen to your customer. That is so incredibly important. Don't do what you want to do. Do what your customer wants. You may do all your research and figure out, oh, this is what I think the customer wants. But it's not until you get into business that you realize from feedback that the customer really wants this. We found that in our business, in our coaching business, and in Aviation Careers Podcast. There were certain things that we wanted to do and the customer didn't want, and found out that people really wanted something else. So we went in that direction instead of, you have to put your ego away and just listen to the customer. And listening to the customer means many different things. In this industry, and you know more about this than I do, is that I feel that we don't do a great job selling to people because we don't have much experience in this industry in sales and marketing. Obviously, this is what you're doing, is helping people, because if you've gone to an air show, and I always tell people this, and you go to these different aviation businesses, you almost have to try to get to their attention to sell you something. And that's not the way it should be. You should be actually engaging people as much as possible. So the biggest thing is listen to your customer, but also be open, welcoming. And it goes back to something else. I like to use this example. My wife, she was in aviation in the military, but my wife, we went to this one airport, and we went inside, and she was treated really poorly by that FBO, and they really didn't want to have any time to do with her. But that happens often. We see that happen because their product is actually in such high demand, and there's little supply, that they can do that, or they feel they can. I should say they feel they can. But they really got to realize, you have to try as hard as you can to have the best customer service and be the best for your customer. And that's something that my wife kind of said. She says, boy, I've seen this in this industry more than just once at this one airport. And I said, yeah, it's kind of sad, but we have people like Tim that are helping a lot of people out. That's for sure.
I don't know if it's a personality thing with pilots or people in the aviation industry. I think because, I don't know, maybe for me, I feel that there is a higher barrier to entry. So, for example, you have to be somewhat competent. You have to be able to, do a little bit of math. You have to have some money in order to do flight training, and in order to get into the circle, a lot of people are excluded, unfortunately. And because of that, I guess they get this kind of I don't want to say syndrome, but they kind of feel that they're on top of the world. And a lot of aviation businesses, especially the ones that haven't really been challenged yet, and I don't want to burn any bridges or put any names out of any companies that I have an opinion on.
Right.
But there are some companies that serve the flight school market or the aviation industry market. Even airlines, for example, can be one example where these companies they take it for granted, the customers, and they take for granted what people really think, and they don't really want to understand what customers want. So I think that's really something that applies from a business owner perspective. If you've ever run a business, your customers are what's paying you. I mean,
absolutely.
I think when I first started, I was like, I want to be my own boss. But what happened, I got hundreds of bosses. Like all my clients became bosses. Yep.
Yep. Absolutely.
So in a way, it's really you have to make them happy. So.
Yeah.
You had all this experience growing businesses, and then you started getting into the airline industry. You became a CFI. How did podcasting come to be? How did that kind of?
Yeah.
Because obviously this is. By the way, it's really widespread because you released the one that you did for me, like the show that I was on, and literally one of my pilot friends messaged me. He's like, "Oh, look what popped in my feed today." And I was like, "Oh, it's me."
That's cool.
Who would have known? So I was like, "Oh, interesting." So it's obviously very prevalent in the industry. A lot of young pilots, aspiring pilots, people that don't really know the aviation industry yet. I think that you are kind of a I don't want to say figurehead, but you're a source of truth, I think, for a lot of them, So why did you start it, and how did you get here, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
And that, before I say why, what you just said is so important. You have to be sincere, because there's so many people out there podcasting and doing videos, and you have to be incredibly sincere with your customer, your listener, because they can see through you after a while. They know that I really care about them. About the person I may not see them, but I know they're out there, and I really care about helping them. But going back to how I got involved in this is I wanted to help people because I was the guy doing furloughs and helping people with furloughs, and I said, well, there's got to be a podcast, right? Well, there wasn't, and so I said, well, I'll just start one. How hard could that be? Boy, that was years ago, and we've been blessed with millions of downloads, and people have been so wonderful with the feedback. And one of the things that I realized is that when you say stuff like that, you're probably filling a need, and that's what we did. Since then, a lot of other shows have showed up, and I think they're terrific. There's a lot of good stuff out there. But that is really going back to that. That's how I started it. And then I wanted to also help people understand topics, going back to the teaching. So I started a website called Expert Aviator. And some days we'd have like 10, 20,000 downloads and reads on this thing, just doing stuff like, what's V1, that kind of thing. There's some other guys that are doing that, doing a great job. As a matter of fact, one of my listeners started this website, and they do... he does a lot of, and I'll remember the name in a minute, but he does a lot of explainer videos and does a terrific job on it. And it really, it's what it does is when you look at a problem and you try to fix it, you have a business, and that's where it started. And then I had a friend that had another podcast, and he said, "Hey, I want you to be on my podcast," and that was Stuck Mike Avcast. And I started doing that, and both of those just have been just wonderful. And again, when we stayed within our wheelhouse of doing things that were passionate and doing things that we loved, it worked out. But like Stuck Mike, we lost our way for a little while, and it showed in our numbers. Whereas Aviation Careers kept growing, we started getting into all these different things, and then realized, what we really are here for is learning, living, and loving to fly. And people come to us to hear about experiences and to hear about things that they can learn as a pilot. And since we went back to doing that, we see it in the numbers. People are coming back to listen to us. But again, that's how I got started with that. And one more thing we started doing, if you don't mind me mentioning.
Oh yeah, no, this is your stage, man. I'm just curious how you got here, because like I said, my friend literally showed me his phone. He's like, "Hey, dude, you're on here." I'm like, "Where do you get that from?" so I see the power of your network, of your reach. I think that you had a really good influence to aspiring pilots, and I think even me, when I was doing my private, I came across it probably and listened to it, but I didn't really put the face to the
cool.
things together. And then because now we're doing it on video, but back then it was like on Spotify or something.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm like,
yeah. iTunes, that was like the only one around back then.
Yeah.
And then they have Spotify and all that. But going back to the filling the needs again, this goes back to my philosophy of if you fill other people's buckets, your bucket's going to overflow, whether it's monetarily or spiritually, whatever. And that actually was taught to me years ago, and I still do that. So along with that, 2 podcasts I started. Another thing I wanted to do is help people get scholarships. So I said, there's got to be a scholarship directory out there. Well, I went to look, and there was one guy, he used to be a Delta captain. He was doing one, but he kind of stopped doing it. And I said, well, I could put this together. How hard could it be? here we go again. And it seems like all my projects start with this, how hard could it be? And now, fast forward over almost 10 years, and it is a full-time business. I have someone working full-time on just the scholarships guide. We started off with just about $65,000 of scholarships in this guide. And now we're well over 120 million. It's over 1,400 pages, and it's growing every day. And it's because I have a great team in place that helps me. Teresa, big shout out to her. She does all the hard work keeping that thing up to date. And what I wanted to do is make it incredibly inexpensive or free. So it's only $10 for a year access to this, and we update it every month. But what I did is, how do I figure out how to put this into my business? I said, I have an idea. Let me do sponsorships and say, if you want to sponsor our show, you have to give away X number of scholarships guides. Usually we require 50 of them to be given away. And we'll mention your show or your product or your service on our show until we give away all 40 of those scholarships guides. And we create a coupon in their name. And boy, it worked out great. Now, for the most part, we give away many. We'll give away at least 2, 3, 4, 5 a day. Wow. Just doing it that way, just helping people. And that's that whole thing of filling other people's buckets and yours will overflow. And the one thing with that scholarships guide is that it was one of these projects going back to helping people. My mom used to help people, with applications to college because she was a good writer. And I said to her, hey, I want to do the scholarships guide. And she goes, I'll help you with it. And what was interesting is during the whole process, no matter what, she always said this isn't good enough. It's not good enough. Almost every day, and she was
never
right.
Good enough for mom,
No, but I didn't realize is that a guide is always wrong the minute you publish it, and the reason being is it's old news, right? Yeah. And I hate to say it that way, but it's true because it's old. So you never are done, and there's this elusive ghost that you're trying to chase. Well, we published the scholarships guide. Unfortunately, my mom died 2 months before we published it, so she never actually got to see the last final, copy of it.
Sorry.
So it's kind of thanks, but it was interesting because I think that's what I'm doing. I think I'm still chasing that ghost of hearing her say, "Hey, listen, it's not good enough. You got to keep trying. You got to keep trying," and that's how it grew to so much. And that's something important too. When you have to figure out your why. And that was my why in doing this, and that's the reason people say you're crazy for doing this. There's no way you can make money doing this, and actually we do, amazingly enough. Even though I never thought I would. It was a passion project, and that's something that in general in life, if you make everything a passion project, it doesn't feel like work. If you're passionate about something,
sometimes it still does.
It does. There are bad days, even though I love what I'm doing.
Like, ooh.
Yeah, especially in what you're doing. I mean, it's very demanding. You're helping people market their businesses, and hats off to you for doing that because that's one of the things I think people don't do right. I'm a big believer in constantly being out there. It's very simple as far as marketing your business, but it's not easy. There's a difference, big difference. Simple can be hard, right?
Yeah, I'd say it's. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So it's easy to do, but it's hard to implement. I think everyone can learn the concepts. Everyone can learn the marketing concepts that you need to do. And it's really just putting yourself out there, but it's doing it on a consistent basis where you're posting frequently, you're updating your website, you're reaching out to your customers, you're getting feedback, you're expanding your team and scaling. These are all things that, it's easy on paper, but honestly, in real life, it's hard. I do want to go back a little bit. You said, you wouldn't be where you were or where you are without your team. And I think that's a very common thread or very common advice that I've heard, and I've also applied it in my life. What are some tips that you can kind of offer the community as far as growing and scaling a team without? And here's another thing too. We want to grow and scale our team. We want to support, our friends and our work family. When they join our team, we support them through our revenue. Right, they become our employees. How do we make sure we grow and scale a team, foster a good work culture while still turning a profit? Because I think that's where a lot of flight schools got hung up on. Is like, we want to hire as many CFIs as possible. We want to get all these people in. But at the end of the day, I go by the saying that revenue is vanity, and profit is sanity. So
absolutely, I love that. That is awesome. I'm going to use that, by the way.
and
it is so true. I mean, that a good example is my business in the food business. I only had 100 customers, but it was very profitable, and that's all that mattered, right? I don't need to have 1,000 or a bazillion customers as long as it's profitable. But as far as your team is concerned, I always say I have two types of teams. I have the ones that are, when you say revenue, the ones that are actually working for me, and then for monetary gain. But then there's the people that are working for me because they want to help me. So don't forget, your team is larger than the people that work for you. And so, for instance, I had all these people that were mentors, and I had a board of advisors. And one of my board of advisors, the guy was a CEO of a $1.5 billion business. And, he was just helping me with advice only. That was it. But his advice was absolutely amazing. And to this day, I still use it. And so that's that part of the team you have to grow. I used to give him free stuff. Obviously, I give him a case of lobster or whatever. But he gave me a ride in his G3 when I wanted to go somewhere. So there was kind of a trade-off. The lobster was a lot less expensive than the ride.
Expensive lobster, man.
It wasn't that expensive, believe me. I made out in the deal. But going back to the other part of your team is that you have to, when you're growing your team, you have to make those people realize how important they are, because we don't do everything for money. We want to feel like we're doing something for society, and you have to do little things. And the little thing I do, I do this podcasting, but I also do videos just for my team. And I'll have a video where I'll record, and I will call out people, say, hey, great job on doing this, and great job on the editing, and great job on that. And I will build that team, and even possibly send them a T-shirt for being, for doing something amazing. And then go around and say, hey, we really appreciate what you're doing, and then compensate them fairly. That's the other thing too. And that's really important. But the most important thing is that you hang on to people because they like being here. It's not just about the money, but money is important,
very
so
important,
you have to realize that.
Money is very important, but I think
absolutely.
Your culture is there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Culture is so important. So building the team, you build it through culture. And some people don't like hearing that because they think it's kind of a fluffy term, but it really is true. I mean, if you're going to make the same amount of money here as here, you're going to go to the place that you really love, as opposed to the place you're just going to make money at. I think that's very true.
Before I was working in the marketing industry, I was working in the food manufacturing industry. So I was a quality manager, and I had teams. And one of the things I always kept in mind was people don't quit their jobs just purely on money. People quit their jobs because they hate their manager. So it's like,
absolutely.
How do I make sure I drive results without pissing anybody off, yet still, obviously you can't make everyone happy, but
no.
You still have to find a very good balance. And I think that's what makes a good leader, is being able to balance yourself with, the required tasks, and also being able to fulfill your duties, and also making your customers and your team happy. Because at the end of the day, I think you think about, prospecting. You're also, when you're hiring, that's a form of prospecting. When you're hiring people, building a team, that's a form of operations too. So a lot of times you kind of forget the HR aspect of it, but very important.
I think, too, it's important to realize you're always building your team, even at the grocery store. Yeah, I mean, if you meet somebody who's got this great work ethic and is incredible with people, why can't they fit into your business? Even in a flight school business, I mean, it's all customer-facing. It's customer-oriented. I think that's really important to realize. So that's really, really super important. Same thing with building your team of advocates. So it's not just the people that you're paying. The advocates are those people that refer you, and those are the people that love your product. And a great example, and this is talking about small world, I just flew a trip for 4 days with the airline. I'm also an airline captain. That's my quote-unquote day job, I guess. And the person sitting next to me, he looks at me after about the first or second leg and says, hey, I know you. I've been listening to your show for years. He says, oh, my gosh. He says, I really appreciate what you do. He just realized it all of a sudden. He's like, I used your scholarship guide to get scholarships. And then he told me, during the flight, he says, I just got an offer for employment with an airline I wanted to work for forever. And I was like, that's awesome. That is absolutely terrific to hear. Hate to see him go, but I know this was his dream job, and that was absolutely terrific. So those people are your advocates. Those are the people that help you because they refer other people to you. And and my had a lot of family in the restaurant business. I never got into restaurants. So I saw how much those people work. Oh my gosh! But they actually realized how important it was to have people refer other people to them. It's like, hey, tell your friends, tell them we're gonna they've come in for the first time. We'll give them a free cocktail or whatever it is. But it's the people that don't say anything. A lot of times are the ones that you don't hear from and you wish you did. And that's important to find out, why do those people not come back to my restaurant? Why are those people not coming back to my flight school? Is it something we did? And going back to what you just said, you can't please everybody, but maybe there is something you can do that's better or different. And that's where, for us, like the career coaching, that's how we got into helping people through a direct relationship coaching. I was like, I don't want to do this. Okay, I'll do it. And that really blew up. Again, another avenue where I listen to my customer, and my customer says, hey, can we do a one-on-one? I was like, sure. And that's where you also morph and say to yourself, what else can I do? And people said, well, can we do something better because your schedule's so full? And I said, well, how about group coaching? And that's actually the direction we've really turned towards is the whole
scaling
group
the business up. You do
Absolutely.
You do things that aren't scalable, then you do things that are scalable.
Perfect. Scalability is so important, but you have to start with one, right?
Right.
And that's where we talk about coaching. You have to kind of start there. I'll never give that up, but there's just one of me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas on a podcast and on a group coaching, I can reach everybody, and I can talk to all these different people. But I can't. I really wish I could meet everybody. But if you notice, like my demeanor when I'm on the show, I feel like I'm meeting everybody when I'm here, like on your show or on a video, because I may be talking to you or the person out there that I'm reaching directly, but I may ever be able to meet them in person. But I still am getting you because I'm here talking to you, and I think that's absolutely terrific. And that goes
amazing
back to
things.
and that it goes back to the team, right? Yeah, I'll tell you something else that's a big secret that I don't think people realize. Stuck Mike Avcast started 2012. Rick Felty, who's our producer, I've never met him in person. It's 2024. And we were going to meet each other, and he says, maybe we should keep this mystique the way it is. But we have this incredible relationship. He is in a town where a lot of my relatives live, and we still have him as part of the team. Going back to that building a team, it doesn't have to be a team that's in front of you today, right now. It really can be scalable and additive, and especially with the internet, right?
Yeah, the internet, especially with COVID and remote work. I think the whole workplace and everything changed. Not so much for flight schools. I think it's very one-on-one coaching and being there. But in the manufacturing industry where I came from, and admin, programming, IT industry, all those sectors, there's a lot of remote work going on.
I wonder in the flight school business, maybe even doing a video call for students. Maybe they're at home or something like that. Do a lesson, that kind of thing. That might be a way to reach out more. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
one of the things I'm trying to get for flight schools to do, which I have not yet successfully yet, and it's really it takes some courage to do, it takes some guts to do, but really it's to have that flight school create like a ground school online, just a YouTube channel. Just create the YouTube channel, record some ground school lessons, and people do this out there already. Like a lot of CFIs do it just for for their own clout. But what I want to recommend, or what I want to see one of my flight schools do is, they record these videos, they start their YouTube channel, and eventually my idea, and I'm kind of giving away my secrets here, is we build this library of all these ground school lessons. How to fly a pattern, what's an approach plate, what is the minimum altitude, vectoring altitude, all that type of stuff, right? And you create this library of hundreds of videos, and eventually you organize it into a ground school course, and then you lock it up and you put it behind a paywall. So you get the audience first.
That is a great idea, and I'll be honest with you, that's what we're doing with the pilot interviews that we do. I have over 500 questions. I'm actually recording all those questions right now and answers and doing exactly what you're saying. Because there's just one of me, so I can actually do. That's what we already actually have it out there in a little test mode. I give it to the people I do career coaching with, and I'll say, hey, listen, can you check this out? And it's the same thing. It's like we have all these videos, tell me about a time question, with the holding speeds. It's similar to what you're talking about, but geared towards how to answer in an interview as opposed to during a check ride. Because you same question you answer differently during a check ride. And so that's really, something I think that's a great idea. I mean, I actually think that's stellar. That's a brilliant idea. That's for sure. But interestingly too, with going back to the hands-on you were talking about with flight schools, because I've involved with a lot of different flight schools and clubs. One of the things I'd love to get your opinion on this is I think certain things that they forget about, especially is maintenance. That's one thing I always told people. I think that maintenance is incredibly important for a flight school, especially if you're flying airplanes, which most flight schools do. That is one part of it I see a lot of them that forget about. In other words, a lot of times with the ones that fail forget about how important maintenance is. I mean, I've seen flight schools that have had 15 airplanes at an airport and nobody to maintain them. They have to fly them somewhere else, or they have to find people all the time. And one of the flight schools I've seen recently fail because of that. So how do you figure that out? That's an important part. Well, yeah, you do by noticing you're losing money because the planes are on the ground, or you hire somebody that helps you with a business and marketing, because sometimes you need someone to tell you directly, hey, Carl, you need to get a mechanic. You got 15 airplanes. You're at that point. You need a mechanic. You can't just go and keep finding mechanics. Little things like that. You need someone to do your social media. Those kind of things. I mean, all the different things that you do out there. Customer resource management, that type of thing. Yes. It's so important.
Don't get started with CRM.
Yeah, CRM. But see, I didn't want to say CRM because then everybody thinks something else in the aviation world.
I think resource management, but it's like talk to a marketing guy or sales guy, like, oh my god.
But CRM goes to your team too, because you in CRM you have like birthdays, important times in their lives, wedding anniversaries, and you constantly are getting going back to them and reviewing that. Even for the people that work for you at a flight school, there's a lot of crossover here. There's some things that are different. In a physical flight school, you have certain things that you have to do physically, obviously with the flight instruction. But I think more and more these days it can do so much online, and even partner with people online. If you don't have that, if you're trying to scale and you don't have that ability, hey, tell people, why don't you go out and use this course, whatever it may be. There's so many out there right now. And then at some point, maybe bring that in-house. What you said was brilliant, though, on the schools. There are a couple schools out there that do some videos on a consistent basis, and they are just knocked out.
That's pretty rare. It's pretty rare.
It is. It is rare. And they're the only ones you see, right? It's like you think there's only 3 schools in the U.S., but there's a ton of them because they're the only ones doing those videos, right?
Yeah. There's because they already make the content. They're already teaching the stuff already. All you gotta do is pull out your phone. For me, it's the thing that we're doing right now is nerve-wracking for a lot of people. To record live, to put your face out there. And I think that's kind of the barrier to entry. I think that's the fear aspect of putting yourself out there and exposing, your real self. So,
and being sincere is important. And when and just to that point, I think something that's important. Don't be afraid to screw up. Don't be afraid to mess up. And just mess up. You say, "Oops, wait, I said that was wrong. Let me go on." As an instructor, you got to realize you're going to make mistakes. You're going to say something wrong, and you just have to correct yourself. That's all, and then move on. But don't think you're going to be.
You are
perfect.
Literally like a mine full of golden nuggets here. That's like a lot of stuff. And I like hearing it from you because I've heard very similar concepts, like building a team, treating people correctly, being genuine. All these type of things I've heard, but hearing it from a different perspective, or I guess from a different tone or different voice. Kind of solidifies it for me, because I think it's you hear these things maybe from a book or you hear it from another coach, but hearing it from a person that has a different successful business, it's really it really kind of hits the nail on the head. Like, hey, this is really the stuff that works. Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about coaching. So you brought up the coaching part about your business a lot, and kind of talk to us about what that really entails. Because I think that's kind of a business that if you were just getting the aviation industry, you're not really familiar with. It's not something that's very common. I see a lot of ground school courses, I see a lot of flight schools, but you don't really see a lot of career coaching businesses or people out there trying to help, I think. So, And I think for me, I have my own career coach. I have my own mentors, my own coaches that kind of got me to where I am today. And if without their mentorship and help, I wouldn't really know I wouldn't be out here doing this, So I do think it's important. But for pilots, it's just I haven't seen that before. So, how is it necessary for pilots, and how did you start this whole coaching thing?
So what I found with coaching is that a coach has a lot of knowledge and is also someone who's going to help promote you, right? A little bit different than a mentor. A mentor says, here, follow me, right? And a coach can be a mentor also. But we're helping you succeed using your skills, right? And help, because say I'm a coach in a sport, and obviously I can't play football or wrestling anymore, but I can still coach it, because I can help them. And so that's the most important thing. You have knowledge that they don't have, and you know how to impart that knowledge. And also, again, doing it in a very sincere way is very important. But the reason it's necessary is that and finding somebody who has the skills to coach and also has the knowledge is that it actually helps you decrease the amount of time to get to your goal. And it gives you this huge amount of information in a very short amount of time. And I didn't realize how important that was years ago. But now I realize how necessary it is, because there is a lot on the internet, but you don't know who to trust and who to believe. But there's also not much out there in a local community, because how many pilots do you know really? And so my coaching entails, I get together with young people. The majority actually are career changers now. That actually became a huge part of my business. I had no idea. Again, going towards what the customer wants, right? So the majority are career changers. The people that are younger, I invite their parents on. And people that are married, have kids, I invite their family to come on to the coaching session to say, hey, what is it mom and dad want to do now? What is it my brother wants to do to move forward in their career? And I think it's necessary for most of us to do this if they don't have a mentor or coach already in their lives, because you may not be able to find what you need in your area. And it's the same thing as when you go to a dentist, right? If you don't have a dentist in your town, you need to go somewhere else. You have to find the person that has that knowledge and has the skills to help you out. It really is necessary. And that's something that it may only be one session, it may be a bunch of sessions. But learning these nuggets of information are incredible, like you said, from a coach, because they've kind of been there a lot of times, or they've seen other people do certain things, and they can recommend you doing that thing because they've seen it happen before. And another part of my business I never thought I'd get into is helping people move into this country and become career pilots. And what's amazing is, as you get into this coaching, you start working with other ones that are out there, and those people get into coaching. Like I have one of my co-hosts on Stuck Mike. She's actually doing prep for check rides. Doing like a coaching prep for check rides. I was like, that's awesome. That's so terrific. I have a guy right here in the hangar. He's got a Falcon. He does this thing, and I've always told people it takes 8 times to get into a position where you can make a final sale. This guy has a book. It's called 10X, and he does these videos and stuff like that where it's a whole group now. And he actually owns one of his partners has a Gulfstream, and he's got his Falcon over here. And that's the big part of it is it's necessary to get a good coach to help you continue and move forward in your career, to motivate you too. So you're motivating, you're learning, you're inspiring, maybe mentoring. You're doing so many different things, but you're making it and molding it for that individual, and that's what's so great about coaching. The other thing I found too is what I call group coaching. It's also kind of like a mastermind type of thing where you have other people in your group that help you, and that's the big thing. Mastermind groups I think are so terrific. As long as there's some rules in place. We have rules where you can't say bad things about other people, you can't use the word stupid, that kind of thing. You can't wear dumb or hey, everybody makes mistakes. You have to use positive reinforcement, use positive messages. But yeah, I think it's important to get a coach. My coach I was so lucky to have when I started my first business. Just about everybody I know has gone to some kind of counseling, whether it's in high school, to a counseling office, but that counseling office may not have the information you need if you want to become a dentist or a doctor or a pilot. And that's why I think it's important to reach out there. Find them on the internet, on podcasts. And there's just so many
Carl.
places. Yeah, absolutely. It's and like I said, the most challenging thing I'm going through right now, and just to share this, is the fact that it's just me. I mean, I got to the point where I wasn't sleeping. I was doing coaching 14 hours a day, and I said, I can't do this. And now I'm doing it like 6 hours a day plus the podcasting, and that's even getting to be tough. So that's something that, I even struggle with. It's like, God, I want to do one more coaching session. I want to help one more person. And you can just do so much in life. That's something you really wish you could do more. But if you're thinking of helping people, do it. If you have knowledge, like I've seen folks that I coach have gone out and started coaching other people, either through their airlines, through their schools, and I think that's terrific, to kind of pay it forward like that. And I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, I think the whole concept of coaching is that when you have someone that's been in your shoes. So let's say you have a goal. Your goal is to be a pilot, or your goal is to be a successful flight school business, By getting a coach, you're actually skipping all the steps that you had to do because you're learning from the person that went through those steps.
Right.
So similar to me, I have a coach. I call it a mentor, but I guess there's some nuances and differences of coaching versus consultant versus mentor.
And they overlap.
But for me, I have a coach. I have a direct coach, and I also have a marketing coach and everyone. And they outlined kind of the steps of, hey, this is how you grow your business. This is how you structure your programs. This is how you do SEO, for example. For me, and my background was in programming. I didn't know anything about like search ranking. I just cared about coding and making the coolest app. I realized later that people care more about getting more sales and marketing than they do that if I use the latest technology. So I had to find coaches, and I think I recommend anybody that really is trying to grow their business or has a goal, whether it's becoming a pilot, growing a flight school business. Find somebody that has done the things that you're trying to do. That way you learn from them, and you can skip the hard steps. There's still going to be some hard stuff that come your way no matter what. You're still going to face adversity, especially if you're a business owner or even, as a pilot. You're still going to find challenges that maybe your coach didn't experience. And hopefully when you get to that level, you can then coach the other people next. So it's really a compounding effect of really getting society and people to be more knowledgeable and better. I like how you really specialize in the aviation, and I know that's kind of your background. You kind of shared with us your story of how you did your discovery flight, and you got your solo within a month and all this stuff. And I think anyone that's a pilot kind of shares a very similar story of they took their discovery flight and just kind of fell in love with it. Yeah. Why do you think that like general aviation flying is great for everyone or people for personal use and business use? Not just for people, trying to make a career out of it.
So that actually is kind of where, when I started instructing, that was where I did my jumping off point. Here I was a business owner going into being a flight instructor, and the majority of the people I was teaching was in a downtown area. Most of these people were business owners and doctors and lawyers. And a lot of what I found out I was doing is relating the flying to their business. And to answer your question, I would tell them, hey, this aviation world, it's beautiful. It's amazing what we get to see, but it also can bite you. And one of the things that we have to do is constantly train to be successful and safe and make decisions and constantly make decisions, because flying is just a series of decision making. There's the skills, obviously, that we need, but you're constantly making decisions that have outcomes that can be wonderful or disastrous, just like in your business. And it helps you become a little bit more of a critical thinker when it comes to situations. And I think that's important in your business. It also helps give you self-confidence, because imagine, the first day you solo, you're nervous, but then you get on the ground and realize, hey, I just did that. I just soloed. If I can do that, I can do anything else. And it helps you as you add to your ratings, because I think it in the same way it helps your business when you realize there's more you can learn. You become a better owner, a better CEO, a better doctor, a better lawyer. In the aviation world, you're adding to your instrument rating. maybe to become board certified as a surgeon. In the aviation world, it's getting your ATP. Maybe it's getting your master's in law. There's so many relatable things within the aviation world. And the aviation also, interestingly, with people that are high wage earners and very successful people, gives you the ability to relax. It lets you escape that world that's so intense, maybe in aviation or running your business. Now you're in this other world where all you have to do is concentrate on flying. And I think that's really important to take a step back and makes you look at life from a different perspective. And you can learn from all those people in the aviation world and then bring those things into your business, into your personal life. You have to deal with conflict in flying. Airline pilots, that's what we do most of the time. We're dealing with conflict. A big part of our job is getting off the gate. You're coordinating with dozens of people. And, you have somebody in a certain seat that doesn't want to be in that seat. You have, a cat in the back that's screaming. You have people on the ground crew that don't want to move too quickly. You have all these people you're orchestrating just to get this thing off the gate. And you and your small airplane have those things too. You have to think, okay, I need to leave by a certain time. How do I present this so that I can get the ground crew to put my plane in place so that I can leave at 5 p.m. after my meeting? Do I give them an extra $1? Do I buy them lunch? That kind of thing. Those are the things that keep going in your head, just like in your business. So, and that really does relate. It really does translate into your business. And, you wind up finding other people that are interested in that too. A lot of people talk about golf and they think that's important. I don't really like golf because I'm really bad at it. As a matter of fact, I've never been thrown out of an airport, but I've thrown off a golf course before. So I've realized that that's not my sport, right? And so I'm sticking with aviation.
I think aviation gives you a little more skills than golf, but maybe we're biased because we're pilots.
We're pilots, right? Obviously.
I like golf too. I practice my swing every once in a while, but a lot of people in business do say that golf is like the best thing to negotiate and all that stuff. I learned a little bit of it, but I think for me, I think aviation has afforded me a lot of more opportunities than golf ever has.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
so
absolutely.
That's my take on it.
And the people that you meet in aviation, when you own a flight school, you have a small business as maybe you're one airplane, one person. Those people that you're meeting are usually very successful people, or they will be. Because they are going into flying. I mean, I give people a lot of credit that want to learn how to fly. It's not an easy thing to do. It's very challenging, but you can do it just like anything else. You just take it one step at a time, and you can actually make it to becoming a pilot and saying, hey, I'm a private pilot. And then you join this world of pilots out there that there's very few of. And you can hang that on your hat and say, hey, I'm a pilot. And it's a big community that's out there that is in a recreational way, that get together even socially to discuss flying and that type of thing. And I think that's really important too, to realize that it is something that's additive. And you talk to lots of people and you realize that they like airplanes and they love flying and they became a pilot, that type of thing. So I think it's awesome. I think it really is.
I think the community is great. I mean, you said it's a big community. I think it's a small community. I mean, I was running the numbers with people. I'm like, well, there's 333 million people in the United States. How many of those are pilots? And it's about 870,000. Well, you divide the two numbers, it's less than 1%. So.
You're right. You're right, actually. But the thing is, what I related to all the time is my partner in one of my airplanes. He owned a dive shop. That actually is a much smaller community. It's amazing how little those people make and how few dive shops are out there and how few make money. Wow. And then I realized, I said, it's all perspective. Because I always thought this aviation world was really, really small until I saw that in the dive. I don't know much about the dive shops in that world, but just looking at the numbers, I was like, wow, it really is small. But you're right though. It is. It's a really unique and exclusive organization to be in, the world of being a pilot. But it says a lot about somebody, and it's fun, it's challenging, it'll never stop challenging you. And if you want to be a safe pilot and bring your family along, I think it's really important to constantly challenge yourself to get better. And that's what's so exciting, is that no matter how much we learn, we can learn more, and we're actually making very incremental and large leaps and changes in aviation safety. And one of them was GPS. And when that happened, I never had GPS when I was learning, and so when it first came out, I was a flight instructor, and it was the coolest thing. It had a monochrome screen, and it would tell me where a point was in front of me. And now the NDP approaches that I was doing into an airport that every so often I couldn't get into, I could do an actual, GPS approach, an RNAV approach. It would take me on a line to the airport.
Yeah.
Didn't have to worry about the thunderstorms and lightning, swerving the needle and that kind of thing. And it's amazing how we have that, and then we have vision, and then we have the ability to look at terrain. So that is one of the things that I think has increased our bright future in as far as aviation is concerned. The safety aspect of it, and the training, and the different planes, and the different appliances we have, but also the actual people that are training us, that they've become better because they've learned so much from past experiences from people. And that's what's important about flight schools is safety. Yeah. That's got to be number one, by the way. That's a given. You have to be safe, because you're not going to bring people back if you're not safe, if you're perceived in any way. Your maintenance has to be good. A big important thing is cleanliness. I think that's incredibly important. How many people walk into a flight school and say, "Oh my gosh, this is so dirty," and I think that's something that's some of the most successful flight schools I've done work for. They have somebody that's in charge of cleaning. They hire someone to just go out and clean airplanes, and every day maybe just go through the airplanes and pick up all the trash that winds up in them. I had actually jumped into a rental airplane for the first time in years, and I was shocked. I was so used to having.
Depends on the school. Some schools are cleaner than others.
I'm sure that's true.
It's a mix, because I've been in both ends of the spectrum, where you go to a flight school and it's like, okay, yeah, there's cobwebs in the corner here. When's the last time you cleaned your bathroom? Oh my gosh, But I will say they usually have a cheaper rate. So for us general aviation folks, we like that.
Yes, absolutely.
But then there's other flight schools that have a really clean maintenance shop. Everything's nice, and it's just organized, professional, and you get what you pay for. You get the nice plane, and you get to have quality instruction. So. Two sides of the same coin,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
want to talk a little bit while we have. I think we're almost kind of up here.
Oh yeah. Talk for hours.
You're talking about the future of aviation, and you're talking about this new technology that's out there, in especially for pilots. And you're talking about how you first kind of got your GPS. And I don't know if you heard this expression before. This is kind of to fulfill my curiosity now. Have you heard the expression "the children of the magenta line"?
Magenta line, yeah, absolutely.
So. There's this, I guess, perception for, and I think I fall into, because I fall into like the millennial type, group now. There's this perception from, I guess, older, more senior pilots that a lot of newer pilots are the children of magenta line, and we don't really know how to fly well, and our stick and rudder skills are not really that great, so on and so forth. So how can, I guess, newer pilots that are getting into this that get the foreflight, from the get-go, that get the GPS 430s or the GXIs or whatever they have. How can we use this technology to be safer, yet also, have that kind of eradicate the perception that we're not being safe? Because I think it's a great tool to use. I think, you have to learn the fundamentals first. You have to learn how to use the plotter, the E6B first. That's how I learned, but. I think there is this kind of like stereotype for newer pilots about like, hey, you guys are just little wimps. You can't use dead reckoning or anything like that. It's like, oh, I don't know, man.
Yeah, so some of that is somewhat true, right? Because we see that at the airlines. It's funny you're bringing this up, because that is a push we've made at the airlines, is to get back to those stick and rudder skills. The FAA is mandating it, actually, saying, hey, listen, you guys have to do more hand flying, because you're not hand flying the airplane. So that's something people can take away. Actually hand fly the plane. I mean, how many guys they're GA pilots, boom, they put on the autopilot and that's it, right? And I get it, because you want to be able to have more situational awareness. But try to get out there, hand fly the plane, navigate by roads, by what's outside the airplane. Take a look at your chart, and now instead of having a line on the chart, do this somewhere away from restricted airspace, of course, but try to start navigating. Use that GPS as a backup, but don't use it. Don't use it. Use it as a backup and just navigate from point A to point B. And it really will make you a much, much better pilot. But you're right, though. We have this happening where people are just reliant so much on technology, and they use it somewhat as a crutch sometimes, but we're getting away from that at the airlines. And the way you can do that in general aviation is to actually take a more structured approach and a more disciplined approach to actually getting out there and flying and doing dead reckoning and actually doing some physical flying, looking out the window, as opposed to using all that technology. Great example is HUD. You see HUDs being used in a lot of airplanes, head-up displays. The plane I fly an Airbus, we actually have to look, and we actually visually have to fly and land the airplane. A lot of airplanes nowadays, you have all this technology, you just kind of you follow the pipper, as they say, and let it land. But I think that there is some truth to that. But you have to take the initiative to stop yourself from becoming like that, because there's a lot of very young people that are great stick and rudder pilots because you can tell they were disciplined enough to actually do a lot of the flying themselves. So don't forget the basics of aviation, because when all that stuff breaks, you're going to have to do it yourself. And that's really why it's important to know the basics of aviation, because someday you are going to use it. Someday your GPS is going to fail, and you're going to need to know how to do those things. And how to get yourself out of a jam. And that's why you have to practice on those things that you don't use very often. That's how you get away from that whole child of the magenta line.
I like how you said that. Like, keep practicing and always stick to the basics. Because if you want to be the master of something, it's really, you're not really mastering advanced techniques, although that's part of the training. It's really doing the basics expertly. And that's how you get there. So
absolutely. Very well said.
We're kind of out of time here, so I will kind of give you the last couple minutes to kind of promote your podcast. If people want to reach out to you, how do they, talk to you? If they want to do coaching with you, what do they do to sign up? Or, what's your call to action?
Yeah, it's absolutely. Well, we have the free podcast, aviationcareerspodcast.com. Check it out, and you'll learn something. We also have the general aviation podcast, Stuck Mike Avcast. Totally different show where you learn about flying and loving to fly, live and fly, learn to fly, that kind of thing. And that's something that's a lot of fun. And that's all you need to do. Go look at those. And in there we have links to all the courses and stuff like that. But really, I ask you just to take a listen. You're going to learn something by listening, even if you don't do anything. It's all out there for free. I feel like I learned something just
for talking to you just for a few minutes. I think I got a free coaching session.
Well, I appreciate you.
To all of our visitors and audience members, I want to say thank you for tuning in. This is Tim Jedrek with Rudder Marketing. If you are interested in hopping onto this podcast, you go ahead and give us a call, 314-804-1200, or check us out at ruddermarketing.com. If you are a flight school and you're looking for help growing your school and enrolling more pilots, feel free to reach out to me and my team. We're here to support you. We're here to give you the resources you need to grow your school. The free checklist, webinars, podcasts, we all have it on our website. Check us out when you have free time. And without further ado, I want to say one last thank you to Carl for hopping on our podcast. He really is this mind full of golden nuggets, and that's why he's the coach, man. He's the coach of the year here. So appreciate you hopping on, Carl.
Well, it's been a blessing being here. Thanks so much, Tim. And I think what you're doing is a wonderful thing for flight schools.
Thank you. See ya.